Well, hello and welcome back to part 4 of our talk and discussion about Moses drawn out by the will of God into a new future for not only Moses, but also for his people. This has been an interesting study, and of course we're going back into many years ago when Moses was commissioned by God in the backside of the desert in Midian to lead the people out of bondage that were currently in Egypt. And you know the story well if you've been watching the last 3 episodes of our discussion about this. And I had some thoughts to tie some of this together, and I thought I might share with you in the next few minutes. One is that God will take you out of a situation with the express intent to take you in to a new situation. In other words, God took his people out of the bondage, which Egypt represents bondage. He took them out of bondage. That was his will, and he was very direct with his will and his intent. It was not even a gray area. It was not even up for discussion. He said, tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And he gave specific instructions for them to leave Egypt and to go to a new promised land that he had in mind and was their destiny. And so God is going to take you, it's always God's will to take you out of bondage with the purpose of bringing you into freedom. So Egypt is in this case representing bondage, and the promised land was representing freedom and a new beginning. God wants to take us out of bondage. Now, bondage can be many different things for us. And of course, we think about many of the common vices, like drinking, alcoholism, maybe drugs, a drug addiction, pornography, or some sexual addiction, and the list can go on. But God wants to take us out in order to bring us in. God's never going to take you out just to leave you hanging there and with no purpose, no destiny. You may be in an in-between stage. You may have just left something, but you're not yet quite into what God's promised you or what your destiny is or what your calling is. And that happens very often. And that's kind of like no man's land. You feel like you're without direction. You feel like you really don't know. You're not really fulfilled, and you're not complete. And, patience is the hardest thing at this stage. And we oftentimes want to help God out and kind of do like Abraham. Well, God, I know you promised Isaac, you promised the seed, the son, but I don't see it happening, and in the natural there's no way it could happen. For Abraham and Sarah, there was no natural way that she was going to have a child. She was barren from her youth, and then at this point in time of her life she was way beyond the age of childbearing. So even if she had been fertile and able to conceive, age alone would have prevented it and said it was impossible. And so Abraham, maybe we should go another route. Maybe God meant this and such. And so we try to reason, we try to think, well, maybe, let's read between the lines. Let's kind of help God out. And oftentimes we create an Ishmael when we do that. We get impatient. And in this case, they had Ishmael through the maidservant or the slave girl of Sarah's and Hagar. And Ishmael became the leader of the race that we call the Arab world. Basically, trace their descendancy from their ancestry from Ishmael, and so even to this day, the Arabs and the Israelites are fighting over that little piece of land that we call Israel. All stem back from Abraham in that day. But I'm deviating off of my point here, and that is that God will take you out of a situation, but He has a purpose, and it's to bring you into another situation that's going to be closer to your destiny and my destiny. Remember that we are constantly entering or leaving in life. In other words, life is a fluid movement. It's like a liquid. It's moving. It's not a solid. It's not still. And so, for an example, you entered into this life through the womb of your mother. And likewise, you're going to also leave this life, but through the tomb. You're going to go from the womb to the tomb. And there's a lot of miles in between. For example, you enroll in a school. You want to get a college education. And then maybe 4 years later, you graduate. You leave that school. You entered the school, you left the school. You entered this world as a baby, you left this world as an adult. In our walk with God, the intent is not to be frozen in time, frozen in the past, or crystallized in the past. It is to grow and to move forward, and to move forward towards God's plan and destiny for our lives. Another thought I had was that the experience Moses had, those 40 years in the backside of the desert in Midian as a sheep herder for his father-in-law, Jethro, was a good foundation for him to take the children of Israel through the desert where they spent 40 years wandering around. Our past can lay the foundation for our present and also for our future. And a lot of times we get upset because the past may be filled with many things that we're ashamed of, or things that were unpleasant experiences. Maybe you went through a divorce, maybe you lost a child to a premature death, maybe you were fired from a job. Many things could happen. Maybe financial hardship, you lost your house or you lost your car, couldn't afford it, it was repossessed. There's many things in the past that we don't like to be reminded of and we don't want to revisit, but they can lay the foundation. The experiences that we gain can help us to grow, and it can help form our present situations we're in, and also our future. We can learn from the past mistakes and hopefully prevent from repeating them today and tomorrow. I like T.D. Jakes says that God doesn't waste our past, and I like that. I think it's absolutely biblical that God took the past of Moses and He used it as a springboard for His future. He took the past only with the idea that He would use it and build on it for the future and for His destiny. And God will do that for us if we will allow it. And remember that Satan tempts us only to condemn us when we fall for those temptations. It's interesting how he goes around constantly whispering in our ear, to do this or to do that and tempt us. And then if we give in to that temptation, he kicks us while we're down, and he's beating us over the head and saying, "You're stupid, and why did you do that? And you knew better than that," and blah, on and on and on. And he condemns us for it. He says, well, if you were a Christian, how could you have done this? If you're really a child of God, how could you allow this to happen in your life? He's constantly, but yet he's the one that tempts us with that temptation, dangles that, carrot or that fruit, and if we give into it, then he's quick to say, hey, and condemn us. And that's why he's called the accuser of the brethren. So there's a lot of life experiences and life markers that we can glean from the study of Moses. Maybe even in the future we'll go back to when he was in the desert and in the burning bush experience. But I just wanted to just throw a couple of these out to you today, that God takes us out to bring us in. He takes us, and he always wants to take you out of bondage, no matter what that bondage is. He doesn't want to leave you in that condition where he found you. And if we will allow him, he will take us out of it into something much better, into the destiny that he created us to be, what he created you to be. He created me to be. And so I just want to encourage you, don't stay crystallized in the past, and don't allow the past. And I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you, because I've done that. I know exactly what it's like to beat myself up over the past, mistakes and failures and sins, and then to just say, well, I guess that's who I am. It just defines me, who I am, by my past. And instead, God wants to use that mess, and if we will allow it in time and age, it becomes a message, and it can be for his glory. So don't give up. God is still on the throne. He loves you, and he's not finished with us. He's got good things in mind for us. And so you be encouraged. We will talk again soon. God bless you.